The Glenturret 10-year-old peat smoked 2022 release. This is quite a whiskey. I review, I don't know, anywhere between 30 and 50 whiskeys a year and taste a lot of other whiskeys on other occasions. The challenge with that is you can become maybe a little too accustomed, maybe too spoiled, maybe too blasé. It becomes harder and harder for a whiskey to really impress you, to have those wow moments. When you first get into whiskey, every whiskey is a wow moment. After a while, kind of settle in, and it takes a little bit more. Well, I'm going to tell you, this whiskey really has the wow factor. But before I get into this, let me tell you a little about the history of Glenturret Distillery and the production facts about this bottle. Glenturret Distillery is located 2 miles or 3 kilometers northwest of Crieff in Perthshire, Scotland, on the banks of the Turret River. The distillery is hidden in the glen, and its secluded location may have contributed to its early history as a site of several illicit bothy stills. In 1775, whiskey smugglers established a small illicit farm distillery and named it Hosh Distillery. In 1818, John Drummond is granted the first license for distillation at the Hosh Distillery. In 1826, a nearby distillery is established named Glenturret, but it is decommissioned before 1852. In 1842, John Drummond is declared bankrupt. In 1852, John McCallum takes over the Hosh Distillery. In 1874, John McCallum is declared bankrupt. In 1875, Thomas Stewart acquires the Hosh Distillery. It is expanded, modernized, and rebranded Glenturret. In 1896, the Glenturret Distillery Company is established. In 1907, the distillery is acquired by Mitchell Brothers Limited of Glasgow. In 1921, production stops and the distillery is closed. In 1929, Glenturret Distillery is dismantled and Mitchell Brothers Limited go into administration. In 1957, James Fairlie acquires the dilapidated distillery site and Glenturret brand. In 1959, the new and old buildings are refitted, incorporating the mash tun and stills from Tullibardine. In 1960, the new distillery became operational and spirit began to flow. In 1981, Remy Conteroux, one of the distillery's main customers, takes over the distillery. The distillery and its visitor center are expanded. In 1990, the ownership of the distillery passed to Highland Distillers Company. In 1999, Highland Distillers Limited is acquired by the Edgerton Group. In 2002, the $2.5 million Famous Grouse Experience Visitor Center is opened. In 2019, Lalique Group and Hans-Jörg Weiss bought Glenturret Distillery. The Glenturret 10-year-old Highland single malt Scotch whisky. It's aged for 10 years in first fill and second fill American and European oak. It has natural color, it's non-chill filtered, it's bottled at 50% alcohol by volume, and sells for about $75. So one of the interesting things about Glenturret Distillery is they mash by hand. I recently did a video on mash tuns, basically rake and plow versus lauter. Most distillers are using lauter. There's maybe 6, 7, maybe 10 at the most in Scotland that are still using the old rake and plow. Well, they do their mashing by hand. Needless to say, your production level can't be too high if you're doing it by hand. Does it make a difference in the whiskey? Is it maltier than, say, the rake and plow? I don't know. The second thing about this is, if you look at the bottle, if you saw there, as you saw there in the video, on the history of the distillery, is they've been bought by Lalique. Lalique makes these very fancy decanters, and when they bought, they changed the bottle. Now, it's an absolutely beautiful bottle. I really like it. However, that can become a distraction. You can focus so much on the beauty of the bottle that you're sort of neglecting really what's really important, which is the aromas and the flavors of the whiskey. The second thing is, if you see a super fancy bottle, you can also, in a sort of snobbery way, stick your nose up. Oh, that's just a fancy label. Oh, it's just marketing, da 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 da. and then write off what's in the bottle. Let me tell you something. It's not just a fancy bottle. And when I first opened this and put it to my nose, before I even poured it in the glass, I knew already this was something special. Just on the nose, I was like, wow, this is really, really something. Of course, what's really important is get yourself a little bit into the glass. Try it a few times, get it below the shoulder, get it down towards the label. So, a little difficult to describe. There is smoke going on there, but it's not anything necessarily like Islay. If I was going to compare it to something on Islay, maybe Lagavulin, but it doesn't have any of the oceanic, briny, medicinal characteristics. There is a dried stone fruit character, a lot of vanilla, fudge, caramel, butter almost. It smells really, really rich. It smells like the inside of a Snickers candy bar. A little bit of nuttiness. Really, really nice. On the palate. Wow. Starts off sweet, ends dry, has a little bit of nuttiness and saltiness on the back end. Really, really silky. 50% ABV, no bite. Really, really, really silky. Smoke and peat is intertwined with all the aromas and flavors from the front and into the finish. So right down through the middle of it, you're getting that delicious, sweet, smoky character to it. A little bit of chocolate going on in there, and a little bit of chocolate mint on the finish. It has a really seductive, that's the word I'm looking for, seductive mouthfeel. You could very, very, very dangerously, very easily, just want to sort of pour yourself another one and another one and another one. Except for the fact that I'm still tasting it now. It's got a really nice long finish. Finishes with, it's almost like a dried fruit compote, like a jam jelly. And then that is enveloped in smoke and a little bit of chocolate. It's a slightly ashy on the back end. And just a little bit of spice. Some nice honey notes going on in there. Really, really delicious. Really, really delicious. What is captivating about this whiskey is that it's so unique. You know, there's a certain sense in which it's a sherry cask whiskeys after a while. Okay, sherry cask, you know, or peated whiskey, peated. You know, after, or bourbon cask, you know, first fill bourbon, you know, to where, yeah, there are differences between the distilleries and so on and so forth. And yes, they can be very, very high quality. And you can take those whiskeys and judge them on their own rather than comparing with other distilleries. And then you're looking at quality price ratio and all that. But this is a whiskey that I would say is quite unique and different. And the character is it's very distinctive and different from other peated Scotch whiskeys. I did a whole series for several months on Highland peated whiskeys. Some of them get their peat from Port Ellen. Some of them don't let you know where you get them from. And there's some great peated whiskeys in the Highlands. I wish during that series I had reviewed this one or another one from Glenturret because this really, really stands up in a class by itself. Absolutely fantastic. Now, what I'm going to give it in terms of a score. So, I like the development, I love the mouthfeel, and I like the length of finish. Maybe, you know, you could have more distinct flavors, you know, from the front and the middle into the finish. There's more variation going in there. If I was going to give it a critique, that would be it. That being said, this is an absolutely superb whiskey. I'm going to give it a solid 90 points. Would it take to go a little higher? I would say just more variation in the palate. Glenturret's a little challenging to come by, but I am going to be keeping my eyes open for other bottles from Glenturret, because if any of them are as good as this one, and some of them are older, undoubtedly probably even better, I'm going to snatch them up. All right, that's it for this video. If you like watching my videos and you've not yet subscribed, actually subscribe and ring the bell to be notified for when I go live or post a new video. Until next time, cheers. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and check out these other whiskey videos.